last. Yes.
Good morning. Good morning. Today is July 25th of 2021, and our topic of conversation today is the road less traveled. And I'm going to begin.
Which, by the way, is why we're on late. We were on that road.
We were on the
And it
road
was
less
less
traveled.
traveled, and because of that, we didn't know where we
It
were.
was
And
definitely less traveled on Zoom.
yeah, and there were no road posts, no signs, nothing like that. And we did see a coyote, though.
So I'm going to share this writing by Ernest Holmes. It's in our 365, which is a thought for each day and a prayer, and it's actually tomorrow's. I
Okay.
live in the life of God. And he says, all life is one life, just as every physical substance known derives from one universal energy. So there is but one life principle, which is God, in which we all live and from which infinite source our individualized lives are drawn. If this one life is present everywhere, it is also within us. To say that the life of God is the only life there is means that my life is not only in God and of God and from God, it is God in and through me. If this were not true, I would have a life separate from God, which is unthinkable and impossible. But if it is true that the life of God is my life now, how wrongly I must have been thinking about this life. I have judged it falsely and condemned it unnecessarily, and in every way, shape, and manner, in my ignorance, I have denied the very thing I should be affirming. And so there is one life. That life is God, and that life is my life now. In God, I live and move and have my being, and God lives in me and moves through me. I deny then that there is any life separate from God, and I affirm that every organ, action, and function of my physical body is animated by the divine life that created it and sustains it. It is this life that is circulating through me now, in happiness and harmony and with perfect rhythm. I am one with whole. Therefore, I say to my mind, you are to live and think and feel this truth until it is spontaneous and natural. And when you say, God is my life, you are to know that the entire life of the divine and perfect presence is now flowing through you. I affirm this today, and the life of God is the only life there is. That life is my life now, complete and perfect. And so it is.
Beautiful.
So I have a little story to tell about just that part. Uh, our president, Edward Viljoen, who is the senior minister of the Santa Rosa,
Right.
the Santa Rosa. There's so many Santas in California. I had to figure which Santa.
No pause, but okay.
Santa Rosa, and he was visiting Thailand, I believe. He was in Southeast Asia, and they were visiting the Buddhist temples, and so the Buddhist monk asked him, what did our teaching teach? What did we believe? And that can be a hard thing to put into one sentence. And this is what came out of his mouth. He said, "There's one life. That life is God, and that life is my life now." And so I think he added that life is perfect, and that life is my life now. And the Buddhist monk thought about it, nodded his head in approval, and said, good for you.
So we have the Buddhist stamp of approval.
We have the Buddhist stamp of approval, and it's become a chant. We actually have a chant to that effect, because it is a lovely way to enter meditation, or just a lovely way to worship. So, Bob, tell us about this
this road less traveled. Well, part of what I was thinking originally when I thought about the road less traveled is the road less traveled is the road that we choose that maybe no one else has been on. And it is less traveled because it's our choice, and there aren't markers. There may not be road signs. There may not be places to rest or food available, it could be a rough road, and the road less traveled by its very nature is a road that may not have any of the amenities or any of the comfort and ease that we often associate with a travel or with our travel. So here we are on a trip, and without expecting it very often, all of the most difficult challenges occur as a part of being on that road. And that's actually what we've signed up for. Anyway, I had a great deal more thinking about that. And then I remembered all of a sudden, for some reason, having just recently seen, you know, Saving Private Ryan, the movie Saving Private Ryan.
Again.
And again, I've seen it before, right? And where we tuned in actually was near the very end. First off, Saving Private Ryan is a true story, and the movie itself is restaging things that actually happened with as much accuracy as any movie has ever been able to manage, as far as the details and what actually happened. There was a bridge in France that needed to be protected. And if it didn't get protected, then the enemy would cross that bridge and
protect it from the Nazis.
From the Nazis, right? And if the Nazis were to get over that bridge, then it would be just about impossible to stop them on their journey. Now, why am I sharing this story? And particularly, as a peace-loving person, why am I using an example of war? Well, I thought about it, and first off, none of the soldiers that were defending the bridge wanted to be there, but it was a road that they chose by virtue of the mission that they were on, which was to protect and to help the people of the land. And so here they were on a road less traveled they didn't really want to be on. And they all had reasons not to want to be there. But what was really interesting is before the battle actually starts, you get a chance to hear from each of the characters. And I thought for the first time, what if each of the characters is one of our personalities or an aspect of our personality? Mm-hmm. There was the hero who couldn't wait for the battle and wanted to shoot somebody. He was excited. And there was the lover who was both funny and humorous and poetic and creative. There was the coward who was just hoping that this whole thing would go away and wanted to hide somewhere. In essence, what I saw were a bunch of people gathered together on the road that all had very different agendas and were all there with different qualities and different characteristics. And that represents us. We often think that we're one person. We're actually a multiple number of people depending on the conditions and the circumstances. But every one of them was saying yes to the situation, to be on this road less traveled, and it was a dangerous and difficult road. They agreed to stay together and to battle whatever enemy came before them, knowing that they might very well not survive. Well, actually, on this road less traveled that we all are on, we're not guaranteed survival. We're not guaranteed
of this life.
Yeah, we're not guaranteed it's all going to work out for us in our own best interest from the point of view of being here and being healthy. What happens in the battle, and this is really, I think, very important, is some of the people in the battle get wounded and some actually get killed. But what happens at the end of it is those that are left begin the repair of that which has been lost and damaged, and for themselves as well. And I think the message is that we are resourceful, we are multidimensional, and we have the capacity, even though some part of us may be at risk and may be injured, to heal and to bring healing and to learn from that healing. At this point in my life, I cannot say that there haven't been injuries or there haven't been times when it looked to me like I wouldn't be here for the next day. That's what life is. At the same time, different aspects of my personality, different qualities that I have shown up and been great teachers. I mean, September the 14th of September 9th of 2014, I had a stroke, and I never would have guessed that the observer part of me that had the capacity to love and see healing taking place would be sitting in the hospital bed admiring the staff and what they were doing. You would have thought having a stroke would have meant I would be more panicked about dying. That was there. But there was another part of me that showed up and said, look at what's going on here. Look at these people. Look how they're operating. Something I wouldn't have seen had I not been in that state. So on the one hand, like a lot of us, I was facing the possibility of death. On the other hand, I was experiencing an awakening. And when we're on the road less traveled, we're going to have both happen. And the really critical thing is that we don't then take a step back and try to figure it all out and make it into a story that feels and sounds good instead of experiencing it and its richness and what it has to offer.
Well, and I think what made that the road less traveled, to tell a little bit more about the story,
Yeah,
there was a small group of men led by a captain who whose sole purpose, their only task was to find this Private Ryan and tell him and take him home because his three brothers had already been killed, and the head of the army decided that was enough loss for any mother, and that the one son she had still surviving should go home. So that was their sole mission, was to find Private Ryan. And when they found him and told him, he said, "No, I'm not
yeah,
going with you. I will not abandon my
my
brothers
family.
in battle here. Uh, I'm not going." So the road less traveled, it would be the harder road, you know. So at that time, the captain and his men, who had already lost a couple of people just getting there, could have said, "Okay, it's your choice. We're going home." But instead, they chose the harder road. They said, "Okay, we'll stay and help you defend this bridge." So both Private Ryan and the group that came to free him, free him from battle, uh, chose the road less traveled, the more difficult, the more challenging road.
What's interesting too is that the soldiers that were there were willing to stay and fight, but they really had no hope.
Yes,
They had
that's
really
right.
given up.
Given up.
How many times in our lives have we said, I'm staying here, but we've really given up and we really have given up hope? So we're really not staying. We just look like we're staying. The captain said, let's use what we have. Let's be strategic. Let's see if we can come up with a plan. Now, a plan with hope can be enough to have a victory. Hope alone, as I remember Werner Erhard saying, hope is what you have when you don't have a plan. Uh, you know, when you have hope because you believe that even with the worst of possible odds, with a plan, this may work. And the captain then, who happened to come from out of nowhere looking for Private Ryan, was the answer to the platoon's need at that time. Something came from a place away from where they were into that space and said, there is an answer.
And that was
Yeah, he was.
a leader who could think strategically. And we all have that leader within us too. That's another part of
Yeah.
our
Yeah. So
personalities.
how many times have you been, there is no solution to this. There's no way out of this. There's no way this can work. And from some other place or some other dimension or some other place in mind, all of a sudden the answer occurs. And you think, oh my God, how could that possibly be? We call it coincidence. We call it a lot of things. I call it hope with a willingness to stick it out, a plan, an energy, an intelligence that says, I'm going to do this for whatever, for better and for worse.
Or there is an answer.
Yeah, there is.
There
Yeah,
is an answer, and there is something positive that can manifest. I'd like to take that and move it into this area. Uh, and I have a Bible quote about waiting on the Lord. Some of you raised in traditional faiths probably heard this, and you kind of wonder, what is waiting upon the Lord? You know, is that like waiting, like a servant waits on someone, or are waiting for the Lord to come through for you? What does that mean? So it comes from Isaiah 40:31. And the quote is, "Those who wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength, and they shall mount up with wings as eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint." Now that's really what happened to these two different
yeah.
bands of soldiers, is that suddenly they renewed their strength, and with wings as of eagles, they mounted up and were successful. So, but the key to this verse is the word wait. And again, you have to understand that every time we read something in English, it's come through everything from Aramaic to Greek to Latin to English, at least those four translations. So you're never sure about that word. I didn't start with Hebrew, but Aramaic is a form of Hebrew, is a dialect of Hebrew. So the word wait in Hebrew is kava, which has two meanings. It means to bind together like a cord, um, and um, So the bind together. So when it says to wait upon the Lord, it actually means to be connected to remember that you are connected to the Lord or the law. Because whenever you see the word Lord in the Bible, you can also change that to the law, meaning the law of mind, meaning your connection to the Lord. So and when you think about it, a rope is twisted together pieces of hemp, lots and lots of strands of hemp. And the more strands there are, the bigger and stronger the rope is. And so you can also think of those strands. They're all of your spiritual practices that connect you to Source or God.
Yeah, every soldier was a strand.
Yes, yes. And so and with our spiritual practices, every prayer, every meditation, every act of forgiveness, every act of gratitude, every affirmation that you speak, all of those are cords binding you to Source that you can never be separate from, but it sort of binds your awareness to it. And in the Jewish faith, when they pray, they actually bind a leather cord around their arms to remind them that they are binding themselves to God, which is this kava, this waiting upon the Lord. So
So it's not passive.
it's not passive. It's not
No,
passive. It's not waiting. It's not waiting for the Lord to come through for you or the
right.
law to come through for you. It's really a reminder. Waiting upon the Lord is reminding yourself that you are connected, as that affirmation that I shared in the beginning,
Which then allows
that there's
you,
only one life, and that life is God.
and it allows you then to make space for the possibility of information or change or things to happen that wouldn't. It doesn't conclude. It lives with the question being open to how and what. And in the movie, what you see is they're waiting on the Lord. They don't know how to do this. And the captain shows up, who is a part of that, wearing the same uniform, part of the same rope, and offers a solution. But that wasn't even a possibility.
So Ernest Holmes says in Pray and Prosper, a book or booklet, and he says the secret place of the Most High is at the center of our own being, where in silence we wait on Spirit and permit the perfect law to fulfill our desire. This is waiting upon the Lord. We permit the divine images of perfection to flow through our consciousness, reflecting themselves through the law of cause and effect into our objective conditions. So I think it's a different meaning than
Mhm.
we often give or heard as children, wait upon the Lord. Um, and that I think is just inevitable when there are all these translations involved. But so to your life and how you live it, and this road less, I think it is the road less travel, especially today, to know that your every thought is also going into the mind of God, is received, is acted upon, is returned to you. It's a very interactive process. That's the road less traveled. You know, for so many of us, we were raised with a religion where you go into a church or cathedral, and that's where you pray on Sundays. Or if you happen to go to that church other times, you might kneel at your bedside and pray too. But then you stop that spiritual connection and you go about your physical life. And many of us bring that into it when we enter a spiritual practice too. That I'm feeling this connection when I'm talking to God or listening to God or doing an act like that. And what this rope analogy really is a reminder that there's this constant connection.
The constant connection, and I had a personal experience this last week, which was somewhat an illustration of that for me. I accepted a job working at a mental health center because I really wanted to be back in service. And I wanted to be in service in a way that used my skills to the best of my ability. And after the third or fourth day of being in the orientation of this, going out in the field and doing what I would be doing, I became more and more aware that this wasn't going to meet my needs. This wasn't going to be as good a fit as I wanted it to be. And that probably I wasn't going to be able to fulfill what I had in mind and what the organization had in mind. Now, that would typically be the beginning of the end. What I mean by that, when you just simply say, well, I guess I'm not going to be able to do this. I took a break from that, and what I was really impressed with were the people I was working with and the quality of them and the integrity that they had and the passion they had. And so I found the supervisor that had interviewed me for the position, which she is just a wonderful heart, an open heart, a caring, loving person. And I thought, I may or may not keep this job. It looks like this isn't going to be the one for me, but I want to tell her how appreciative I am of what she does, what she has to offer. And so I took her a copy of my little book and I said, I want you to have this as
What little book is that?
The Diary of a Mindful Dog.
Okay.
And I said, I want you to have this just because I want to say thank you for what I think is an amazing job you're doing and what an amazing person you are. And she said, well, I just moved from that department to this new department and I'm going to be doing this new thing. And I said, tell me more about that. And so she told me more about it. And I said, God, that's a lot of what I have done for years. And she said, well, I'd love to have you on my team. And I said, well, I'd love to be on your team. She said, but you got to know that nobody can be hired and then transfer to a different department for at least 7 months, but I'll talk to the CEO. And she came back and said, I talked to the CEO, you got the job. And so Tuesday I start a new job within the same organization that it seems to be a better fit, and we'll see. But the important piece of this for me was what I could have done is said, oh my God, this isn't working out. What am I going to do? How is this? But instead, I really couldn't worry about that. What I really wanted to do was to appreciate the many strands of the rope that I was connected to.
Yeah, and that's also that's part of that hope. Part of this road less travel, when you're always connected with source or God, is there is always hope. And you don't know where it will be or how
Yeah.
it will come or when it will come, but you expect it. You expect it.
I never would have guessed that at the end of the week, I would have a different job that actually paid more. and
that you like better.
But that I like better and would meet more of my needs. And I think as a result of that, meet more of the organization's needs. And so what are the odds? Well, see, the thing is, you can't evaluate that. All you can do is ask yourself, what's the highest and best I can do? And I guess for me, the real key piece was, how can I show appreciation for what's been given to me, even if it doesn't work out the way I had in mind for it to work out? How can I say thank you at every turn, rather than, oh my God, here we go. This isn't going to work. I don't know what I'm going to do. This is just awful. Here I put my time and effort into this thing. It's so easy to move into sour grapes before there's anything having ripened.
Yeah, or to be negative or critical. So the road less traveled, again, is to be grateful no matter what's happening, expect the best no matter what's happening. Just know that you are always loved and cared for. You are always connected.
I think being on a movie role, I mean, we just also watched Bagger Vance, the movie Bagger Vance, and the golf ball that he has to hit is in the middle of a thicket. You can't see out of it. And there's a little opening as far out as you can possibly see. And his guide says to him, just see. Juna, yeah. Arjuna just says, see through that. See yourself. He says, yes, you can. Just, that's all there is. Just do that. And, you begin to see the focus and the great music in the background, and all of a sudden he hits it and it goes right straight through. The distance between where you are and where you want to be gets longer as you worry. It gets longer as you think about all the reasons that you can't. And it gets shorter when you can't imagine not getting through it.
And by the way, that movie, Bagger Vance, is a takeoff. It's an analogy of the Hindu sacred story of the Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad, Bagger Vance. Yeah. And the guide was Arjuna in that. And the guide here is Juna.
If you haven't seen that movie, it is so worthwhile.
So good.
And it may or may not improve your golf game, but it surely will. It surely will wake up your philosophy. It just makes you smile.
So it is time to close.
Oh, it is. Yes,
it's time to close.
So I want to say special thanks to all of you who stepped up last week and helped support us, because it really made a difference. And it's hard to do this every week and have us not know whether we can do it. And so you just reassured us with your confidence in us and with your tithes and your gifts that we not only can do it, but that it's appreciated. So I want to say thank you to that before we go into the offering part and the music part. I did pick a song for today. So we're going to stop recording, and we're going to do our offering, our music, and then our friendly conversation.